We are recording. Brilliant. Alrighty, so welcome to Email Marketing for Small Businesses, where we answer this one question: is it worth it? And if yes, how do I do it? And the question of is it worth it is really based around the observation that both in my own life and my clients, that we all know we should be doing email marketing. We all know we should be building a list. We all know we should be reaching out and being in contact on a regular basis. But when you then actually sit down to do it, you face these questions of, well, how do I do it? How do I start building a list? What do I give away to get people excited about, signing up, giving me their email address? And how do I send emails that they don't come across as pitchy and spammy and people press the spam button? And finally, how do I actually do this in real life? How do I sit down and write emails? Because, I've got a real business to run. I don't have all day to sit down and write the daily emails. And that's really this core question: is it worth it? With all the things you could potentially be doing, is it worth doing this in your own business? And if you decide to go down that route, how do you do it? I'll give you the quick answer already. It is, in my opinion, absolutely worth doing. And the good news is that you can basically start with a very fundamental, rudimentary setup and then build up on that. And that's not only you should also, because there's no point starting a newsletter when you don't have proof in the marketplace that you are barking up the right tree. Alrighty, so what I've got for you is one of many, many blog posts about the wonderful statistics why email is so incredibly awesome. And look, at the end of the day, anyone can find any stats that prove pretty much anything. And as a result, do we really believe stats? So I've pulled out a few things here, and we'll look at them with a critical eye, if you like. The first one here is, and that was that article I've just shown you here, this one. One of the things I observe is that email is the third most influential source of information for B2B audiences behind recommendations and thought leaders. And the key thing here is the focus that they should have really highlighted is the source of information, because that is a topic that will come up over and over again. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. Email is not just, hey, look, I've got something cool for sale, but it is at the center of a big shift that's happening in the marketplace, namely consumers wanting to be in control, wanting to use the internet to get the information that helps them make up their own minds, as opposed to you pushing an ad down their throats. The second one is that it's woefully underused, it's woefully neglected when it comes to brand building. So there's a massive opportunity there. And again, I'll show you how to do that in practice. The one great point of email is that it is fantastic at customer retention. I mean, if you've been around the block for a little bit, you know that there are fundamentally not many ways of increasing revenue. One is you can sell at higher prices, one you can sell more, and the other one is you can sell more often. That's roughly it. And of course, customer retention is something a lot of companies are really, really bad at. And it's kind of inbuilt in email that it is fantastic at customer retention. When I look at my email list, the unsubscribe is ridiculously low. And it is because, well, I've made the effort to build a good relationship, and as a result, I have customers for life. And it's not meant to be an exploitative sort of, aha, I've got you trapped type thing. No, as long as you keep providing value, it only makes sense to stick with a provider. For example, I keep buying from Amazon because, in general, they do a pretty good job at delivering the things I want. And now we're starting to get over to this bit I mentioned earlier, the idea that people want to be in control and they are in charge of their buying decisions as opposed to you. And that is, of course, based around the idea of doing permission-based marketing, where you don't constantly put stuff in people's faces, but they say, from time to time it's okay to do a promotion, and I give you permission to do that, but you need to balance it with other things. And of course, that's the beauty of email, because you are in control of what message goes out. You can control when people see your promotional messages and when they see content or value-based messages. And then we've got, well, some some hard-hitting reasons why you should be doing email, and one of them is that people tend to spend more when they get offers by email, and one of the reasons behind it is that you can segment email. Segmenting means nothing but you can send messages that are relevant, and that's really at the core of all of this here. This is what we're aiming for today in this web class here, and in general what you're trying to do with email and really ideally all your marketing. You're trying to get relevant messages in front of the right people, and then they're more happy, or in general they're quite happy to respond to your ads. And I've mentioned a couple of times now the whole idea of people wanting to be in control. And this is not something I've made up or observed. This is something that, for example, a company like McKinsey, but also others like Inc.com, Entrepreneur.com, they've all studied the same thing. And they've come to the conclusion that basically, wherever you look, in 2019 and beyond, the buying process has become collaborative, and it is difficult to influence customers by relying solely on one-way push advertising. So we've gone to an age where you have dialogue as opposed to monologue, as opposed to pushing your message onto people. And that's why email plays such a fundamental role. Hi Tony, I've just seen a message here. Hi. Yeah, hello Tony, welcome on the call. So the reason I think email is absolutely fantastic, and not only think, this is what I observe in my own business, and why it is aligned with the study I've just shown you with McKinsey, is that basically with email you can have a controlled communication. What I mean by this is, well, it is in a way semi-sequential, is almost sequential, in the sense of when you look at an average business, not someone who does an impulse purchase, oh look, there's a sandwich, I want a sandwich, thank you very much, but a normal business where you kind of need to think about it, you do some research, some due diligence, etc. We all know we should be doing should have between 7 and 20 points of contact before someone makes a decision. And that is very hard when you do, for example, content marketing, because you can't influence where people actually see your content and go on it. The thing you can do is sort of blanket or carpet bomb the market. The same goes for social media, etc. Whereas with email, you are in control. You can measure where and how people engage with your content. You can see when they actually read the content, how they respond to it. And as a result, it is much easier to control these 7 to 20 points of contact. And the good news is you don't need to come up with all kinds of things. Oh, what else might they possibly like? If you know what it is they're after, you can put the right piece of content in the right sequence. And of course, because you can see where people click on links and how they open your emails and what content they respond to and what they don't respond to, you can take that engagement and react. And what I mean by react is you segment and automate. So you have it's basically not only figuring out lifetime value, but it's basically customer relationship management in your email. You figure out where people engage and then follow up with the hyper-responsive ones. And of course, because it's email, it is permission-based. Anyone can always unsubscribe. And this is one of the key things when it comes to email these days, or with marketing online. And I've done enough face-to-face selling. In a face-to-face selling situation, people kind of feel obliged to listen to you. Even if they don't like your thing, they kind of sit there and go, and you can read their responses and react accordingly. But online, there is no such thing as feeling guilty. When someone gets bored with your sales video, they are off. If they get bored with your emails and don't read them, they're off. And that's why it's so important to have permission and constantly earn that permission over and over again. So permission-based is not, hey, you signed up once, you did a double opt-in, you confirmed your email, as a result, I will now pitch you to death. Permission-based in this context means constantly re-earning the permission to send them more information. And you do that by being and staying relevant. So if I could summarize, I can summarize email in one sentence, or marketing in general. Successful marketing is relevant marketing. And the reason for that is quite simple. When people don't know you, They don't necessarily like or trust you yet. The only thing they care about is themselves. And when I say themselves, it's basically their own problem they are facing. They're looking for a solution to a problem. And as long as you talk about that thing of how to solve that problem, you are relevant. And you don't need to worry about anything else. And this kind of opens already the door to what I said in the beginning. Well, if we ask the question, what does it take to be successful with email marketing? Well, really, all you need to do is be relevant. And relevance means figuring out first what it is people want and then giving it to them. If they are looking to solve a particular problem, finding or helping them get to that solution. So one of the examples to highlight this, what it actually means in practice, is from my personal experience. As you may or may not know, we used to run workshops for the sales reps of newspapers. So these are the people who go out and sell advertising space to local businesses. And we'd be hired to come along and help them both design their ads as well as help with the sales process. And in this particular case, I went along, I was presented as the new colleague who was learning the ropes, but really my job was to basically observe the situation and give them feedback afterwards on their sales process. And the conversation in this luggage store went roughly like this. So the sales rep comes in and goes, "Hello, Mr. Owner of luggage store, I'd like to sell you an ad." Of course, he didn't use those words, but that's roughly how it went. And today I've got a very special offer for you, cheap price for a great ad. And the owner of the luggage store responded, "That's all very well, but I just want to make sure the quality of my luggage store is conveyed in this ad." And the sales rep interpreted that as an objection. And he went, "All right, objection, I must handle this by lowering the price even more." He says, "Okay, I'll do you a very, very special offer." Again, the owner went, "Well, okay, that's cool, but how can I make sure I attract the right kind of people, those who really appreciate the quality of my store?" Now, you could totally hear, at least from an outside perspective, that the owner of the luggage store was all about, that was his main thing, is the quality of his luggage. He was so proud of everything he had in there, and he shared the enthusiasm with his customers. And he wanted to make sure the ad actually conveys that message. And yet, the sales rep didn't hear those words. It was a completely different message. To him, all those things were objections, and he tried to handle it by giving him extra editorial space and color for the price of a black and white, and bigger size, and 3 for the price of 2, etc., etc. Now, as a result, the job or the deal never happened. He didn't manage to sell it. All of that because the sales rep didn't know what was relevant to the owner of the luggage store. And that's really the core thing here. When you send out messages and you keep going, "Hey, look, I've got the best price and the cheapest price and 3 for the price of 2. If you're not relevant because you're not hitting the point where people go, "That is relevant to me," it doesn't matter how much you discount and how often you hit them 20, 30 times. They will still not listen to it. All of this is based on this, one of many models, but there are, this is one of the ways of looking at it. And it's basically when people go through making a decision, they start with at a very high level, they say, well, at some point I have a pain in my life. There's something that isn't quite right and I'd like to fix it. But I have no idea what the underlying causes are of that pain. So at some point, they then start looking into it and they figure out, aha, my problem is X, Y, Z. And I'll give you a couple of examples in a minute. Once they've figured out what the problem is, well, they go on to saying, well, here are the different solutions, and I'm going to take this particular solution over here. And, one of the providers of that solution may be you. And only after they've gone through all these different levels of awareness do they come to the point where, well, I am ready to pay some money for the solution in this thing here. This whole thing is based on or there are different models, but one of the ones where I personally learned it many years ago is the Chet Holmes pyramid. So Chet Holmes used to be a sales almost superstar, and he ran workshops on how to sell successfully. And the example he gave was that if you go into a big room with, say, 1,000 people and you ask who's currently looking to buy a new car, about 3% of the population will raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm looking to buy a new car. So you can now be relevant and sell them a car, or talk about buying a car at least. Whereas you would then say, well, who's currently looking to remodel their kitchen or do the floors or whatever? Again, anything that requires a bit of contemplation, a decision-making process, the 7 to 20 points of contact, roughly 3% of the population will raise their hand. The reason that is relevant is that almost all marketing out there assumes that people are ready to spend money. Most marketing assumes that people have gone from pain to problem to solution to haven't even looked at you. And then they'll go, you know what? If the price is right, if you give me the cheapest price, like that sales rep in the luggage store, then I am ready to buy. And if you don't get a response, then you try by giving them more and upping the ante by having more urgency and more scarcity and more bonuses. And guess what? Still people don't listen. Still, like the luggage store owner, they don't respond. And the solution to that is right in front of you. You need to be respectful of where people are in their decision-making cycle. If they are at a problem, if they haven't even figured out what is causing their pain in the first place, there's no point saying, look, I've got the solution, ignore the fact that you don't even understand what your problem is, everything's going to be all right. I mean, yes, you can always persuade some people. You can always hit people over the head with a bit of urgency, or with enough urgency and scarcity and bonuses. But inevitably, there will be buyer's remorse, and they'll go, I have no idea what the hell went through my head. Personal story. A few years ago, I was invited by a big name in the marketing industry to basically give a guest talk in his inner circle. So I went along and did one on email marketing. And afterwards, I got a ton of people who reached out to me and said, man, this is awesome. I can't believe you did that for free. That was far better than what we normally get here in the inner circle. So I started talking to one of them, Andrew Anderson, and I said, by the way, you spent $5,000 on the inner circle, and what I keep hearing is you're not getting great stuff. And he says, you know what? I don't know what I was thinking. And the reason he didn't know what he was thinking is he was at roughly problem. He didn't know, he didn't understand what he had to think. And as a result, he was persuaded by the slickness of the sales funnel. He was persuaded by the powerful bonuses and urgency and scarcity, by the promises in the sales copy. But he never got the solution he wanted. He never got to the bit where his problem was solved. And as a result, he went, well, I don't know what I was thinking. He kind of felt negative towards the buyer, the seller, as well as he never bought from him ever again. I have a very similar story. Many years ago, I bought Product Launch Formula from Jeff Walker. And I believed the sales copy. I believed the whole pressure cooker environment of the launch. I believed in, hey, you don't need a product, you don't need a list, you don't need anything. You just need Product Launch Formula. I believed it. I spent $2,000 on it, and screw me. I never got it. Well, I did. Eventually, I did get something out of it, but nowhere near in the time scale that was promised. I had to basically go back to square one and start going, well, I actually do need a product. I do need understanding of the marketplace. I do need a list. And now I can do a product launch. And as a result, the lifetime value Jeff Walker got out of me is at the $1,997. And that's it. Right? There's never going to be any more. So that is, in a very big nutshell, why it is so important that you understand how to be relevant to your audience. And when I say your audience is, well, it's not just one demographic or one target market. It is actually different subgroups who have different levels of awareness of where they are between, hey, look, I've got a problem, and being ready at the solution at the end. So here's the Chet Holmes pyramid. At the top there, the 3%. That is roughly where people are ready to purchase. And the big problem is when you assume that everyone is there, you find a lot of buying resistance down below. And yes, you can overcome some with urgency and scarcity and bonuses and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, you are much better off trying to address those concerns that are happening at those levels. So the example I promised was, let's say you are a business owner that it would be one assumption that you are on this call because you are a business owner. And one of the pain points you may experience from time to time is, well, there's not enough revenue. And then the problem, there might be several problems. You could have not enough clients, like I mentioned earlier, or you might not have enough transactions per client, or you might not have enough of a high enough lifetime value from each client. So as a result, you're spending more on advertising than you're getting in. So at the problem level, we kind of need to figure out what the fundamental cause is. And the reason I'm highlighting this is because this is where you can provide tremendous value, not only for free. I mean, you can absolutely use this to do content marketing or something like that, but you can also charge for it. If you are a coach or a consultant, you know, the McKinseys of this world make millions at this level. They help companies figure out what the fundamental cause is. They don't help them at the higher levels. Well, they do as well, but this is one level where they make a lot of money. So just for kicks, I've highlighted lifetime value. Let's pretend you have an issue where you go, well, I do get enough clients, but I'm not getting enough out of it. So you could then look at different options, different solutions, whether it's remarketing or mail or email, etc., etc. And let's say you choose email. Well, at some point, you're going to go, well, I need to choose someone. And hey, I might choose Fight. Why would I choose Fight? Well, because Fight has a certain USP. And the reason I'm kind of highlighting or putting in brackets UBP as opposed to USP is that the problem I personally have with USP is the unique selling proposition is from my perspective. And the moment I talk from my perspective, I'm no longer really appreciating where people are struggling. It's basically the sales rep in that situation. He went, well, my USP is that I've got the biggest circulation in this marketplace, I've got the best price, and our whatever, color printing is awesome. At the end of the day, the luggage store owner didn't give a toss. What they wanted to know was their unique buying proposition. Why would they buy? And they would buy because they wanted to make sure, or they would buy from someone who can guarantee that the quality of their store is being conveyed in the ad to the right audience, of course. And only once that is in place do you make money. And in this case, proper money here. Euros, yippee! It is so exciting at the moment. Every day we spend the morning going, what is happening in Brexit land? Are we going to have really expensive pounds or cheap pounds? Is pounds going to be toy money instead of monopoly money? Who knows? Hello, Tony. I know you're on the call. Alrighty, so here, kidding aside, are some real examples. This is from a former client, now friend of mine, Andy Keane, who is a landscape gardener in Dublin. And he has on his site several offers, and although they're not strictly aligned with the pyramid I've just shown you, they highlight different aspects of it. So here's a classic, I've got a problem, but I don't even know where to start. Where do I even begin? Type thing. So he's got a special offer for people who go, you know what, I'm so confused about what to do with my garden. I don't even know where to get started. And they pay him €295 for figuring that out. He's not doing anything. He's just helping them figure out what they could do. So as you can see here, he'll do a site visit and a survey. He creates master plan and to computer animated pictures. That's it. So it doesn't actually solve any real problem, you might think. Actually, that is a huge problem for a lot of people. Where can I even start addressing this issue? Another offer he has, well, as you can see, that's very, very different. The ultimate gift to your significant other. Again, that is probably a higher level. It's more like look, this year what I'm going to do, it is Valentine's Day, what can I do for my special significant other? Oh, look at this here. I could do a really fancy thing with the garden. Whilst he or she is away, Andy will come in, I kick back, I relax, and then Andy comes in and fixes up the garden. And he does it for, at two different levels, this one and here. So now he actually does something. He gets you closer to whatever your perfect garden is. Here is, yet again, a totally different one. And you can take a guess where this is on the pyramid, right? You could eat your dinner off this patio special offer. So this solves a very, very, very specific problem. People who have a dirty or a manky patio, he solves that straight away for them. And when you look at the price, you might go, well, that's kind of odd. The specificity, the higher up in the pyramid this problem, the more it should be, right? Well, not at all. In this case, he's using that very specific need to have a clean patio as a lead gen piece. So he says, look, for 25 euros, which doesn't even pay for driving out in most cases, or just about. But when you take into account the time, it doesn't. He uses that to identify those who are interested in a good-looking garden. He'll go there, and with a bit of luck, they do have a garden that needs some attention. And then he uses that whole thing to basically pitch his own services. And the 25 is to keep out the freebie seekers. I mean, you see that often enough. You see offers, hey, free tooth cleaning, free back massage, 5 minutes, free this, that, the other. These are things that work in the marketplace, but this is a real business. He has real people. They really need to drive out. So you might as well target people who are actually willing to pay some money to have something done. There's a very interesting trend on Facebook, or a mechanism. I'm just going to quickly touch on it. I'm not going to give you the details, but within Facebook, you can target different audiences, and Facebook will attempt to give you more of the ones you're already targeting. So if you're creating ads that appeals to people who'd like to engage with your post, right? Post engagement. Yeah, well, Facebook is going to send you more people who engage with your posts. Whereas if you go out and say, well, I only want people who are willing to pay some money, so you immediately go for conversion to sale, Facebook is trying to help you by sending you more people who are just like that, who engage with your content in such a way that they give you money. So that as an aside, you can actually start doing what you're seeing here in Facebook. And then again, you've got a very in-your-face type special offer here. This is back to Andy. I'm sick at looking at that pile of smelly rubbish. It's a very specific problem, but it kind of ties into what we saw first. I don't even know where to get started. And this is a different angle then. He is now basically competing with people who all this is basically turn up with a skip, shovel the stuff into the back of the skip, and you're gone. But he is using different positioning to get people to realize that they've got a problem and there is a solution. And then, of course, once he's in there, he can sell them into whatever other services he has on creating a nice garden. Alrighty. So, in the beginning I asked, but is this worth doing in your business? Is it worth creating email sequences? Is it worth creating a newsletter? Is it worth trying to figure out what's really going on in people's minds? That is the real money question here. Because the bit that takes time and effort is not writing the emails. It's not coming up with an offer. The real thing that takes a lot of time and effort is figuring out where people are in the pyramid and how they express their pain. That is something that hopefully immediately makes sense to you intellectually, but it'll really make sense once you've done this. Once you've started talking to clients, once you've started interacting with real clients or prospective clients, and you figure out, man, they look at the world from a totally different perspective than I am. It is quite interesting. The example I have in mind immediately is Andy. So that's why I said he's kind of become a friend after being a client initially. Because I sat down with Andy and I talked about, look, what it is you're doing in your marketing? How are you attracting clients as a landscape gardener? And my initial assumption was, he's like any small business owner. He wants more clients, and possibly he wants to keep out the freebie seekers. And after talking to him, it turns out the pain points for him as a landscape gardener in the specific environment or situation of being based in Ireland in the sort of post-super growth area, and now things are slowing down, especially with Brexit around the corner, they are very, very, very different from what I assumed they would be. So I should really put a big red circle on the screen and say, really the bit where you need to work is figuring those things out, trying to figure out how to be relevant to what audience. And that is what's worth doing, because once you've got that in place, everything else falls into place. So with that very long introduction to is it worth doing in your business, I would say yes, it is, if you have an audience that is making considered decisions as opposed to an impulse purchase, and ideally where prospects need an education. If you think about several examples. Let's think about Andy. He'll come in and do a patio cleaning. And in a lot of cases, his clients will not have considered having a landscape gardener because they didn't even appreciate the things he can do for them. So that education shows them what is possible. It's usually not lack of knowledge. It's a belief based on something. They have heard someone else say something and they immediately believe, well, this is possible for me or it's not possible for me. And as a result, they stop looking for a solution. So when I say prospects need education, it's not the, hey, look, here are all the options, but let's pretend everything else is bad and mine is good. That's what I mentioned in the beginning. Hey, look, you can prove anything with stats. No, education is quite often addressing underlying beliefs of what is possible for them. And one of the beliefs may be, there's nothing you can do with this garden. This is such a hellhole. I'm not even going to get started. The other one would be when you think about newspapers. The one thing we kept struggling with was how to sell advertising space around the idea of doing coupons, because almost all small businesses had tried coupons in the past and they had failed miserably. And every single time, I kid you not, every single time we'd go in and talk to them and say, look, what have you tried with the coupons? They go, well, you know what? We tried doing coupons where we gave away this free stuff. And I'm going, oh, what free stuff? And they say, well, we had this box of free stuff that no one bought in the back of the, of the office. So we put that in there. Hey, get this free stuff. And I'm going, hang on. The stuff no one ever bought, that's collecting dust. You're trying to appeal to people to come in like this. And they're going, all right then. So the next thing they try then is like, all right, we tried free glass of champagne. I'm going, yeah. Would you personally get up on a windy day like today, big storm outside? Would you go outside and go, yeah, I'm going to make that extra trip for a free glass of champagne? Okay. So suddenly people start to understand, or business owners start to understand, that a coupon works when it is really appealing to their target audience, as opposed to giving away stuff while you go, it's cheap, or it's at the back of the office, or I've got leftovers of it. So it's worth doing when you have those considered decisions, when you have a situation where you need education, but typically not where you have an impulse purchase. Tony is asking, have you got this rotten weather in Germany too? It is ridiculously windy. Tony, I'm a cycling maniac, and I've taken a couple of days off because it's actually too dangerous to cycle. I mean, even my full weatherproofed body is going, no, I'm too much of a chicken because I'm afraid of falling off or being blown off the bike. Alrighty. So the big summary is relevance is the one thing that rules it all. In the beginning, when people don't know you, think of that pyramid I showed you. In the beginning, when people have a problem, or they are even further up, they just have a pain point, they don't look to you as the solution to all their problems and make your pain go away. They don't know you. All they care about is themselves. And the one thing you can do for them is be relevant, talk about the one thing. And that's all based on really this one observation. Real people have real problems and they are looking for a real solution that really, really works for them. Because they've tried all kinds of things in the past and quite often things didn't work for them. I mean, think about it yourself. We are, my assumption is everyone on this call is a business owner. And we've tried all kinds of things. We've tried Facebook ads, we've tried YouTube ads, we've tried search engine optimization, we've tried networking. And guess what? A lot of that stuff didn't work. So we all want something that works for us. And the same applies to basically the rest of the population, including this lady on the beach here. It's all basically centered around this one question. Or if you want to know, what does it mean to be relevant? It is answering this one question. Is this going to work for me? That is the one question and the one answer that rules them all. So, basically, in the beginning I said, we've got two questions here. Number one is it worth it? And I hope I've shown you that it is worth doing. I'll give you a quick recap in a second. And the second one is, well, how do I do it? How do I go about being relevant? So, is it worth it? In my opinion, yes, because it is fantastic at customer retention. Email is fantastic at creating higher engagement and referrals and, of course, revenue. And you've seen the stats in the beginning. Even if we don't believe in all stats, these are the stats I found, and these are the stats I get out of my own business. You typically, or I personally, get higher engagement and more referrals and better revenue when I do proper email marketing. And of course, it's great for brand building, for building that connection. So when I said earlier, in the beginning, people don't care about you. They care about just themselves. In the long run, what they care about is finding someone who guides them to the solution. So they're looking for someone who was in a position where they are now, and now has traveled the journey, has gone to the point they want to get to. And that's really what I mean by brand building, that you are at the forefront of their minds when the time is right. So maybe going back mentally to that pyramid, quite often they are ultimately going to be ready to do business with someone, whether it's you or someone else. But in the beginning, the timing isn't right. They are still at a point where they need to think about the actual underlying pain, and if they're willing and able to do something about it, if they want to really address that problem, and how they're going to do it, what solution they're going to choose. So for them, the timing isn't right. And that's why brand building is so important. That when the time is right, and they go, now I've got my UBP, I've got my unique buying proposition, I have nailed the one reason why I really want to take action. When that time is right, and you're at the forefront of their minds because you've been respectful of their needs all along, as opposed to being pushy, like Jeff Walker or this other guy who pushed his solution on Andrew Anderson, well, then the odds of doing business are extremely high. Tony said, I'm not heavy enough to stay on the bike. I'm doing everything I can. I've been eating, no, actually, you're right. I've not been eating the good stuff today. I've just been eating fruit all day. So is it worth it? Yes, because email is a tool that allows for dialogue. A lot of people use it as a monologue, and that's a bad idea. Email opens the doors to real dialogue if you use it right. So that brings us basically to part number 2. I'm just checking the time here. Yes, we're doing okay. And I'm going to take this opportunity to take a sip of water, and then we look at how to actually do it. Are there any questions around this so far? Why we do it? So if there are no questions, I'll just keep an eye on the chart here. Let's have a look at the how to do it. And the idea of the how to do it is that basically we stop doing random acts of marketing. Because let's face it, that seems to be the favorite modus operandi for most entrepreneurs. Random act of marketing. And I've been there and I've done this. So, this is me looking in the mirror. It all starts with, hey, I probably should build a list. I mean, if you could do me a favor here on the call, just, do you know you should be building a list, or do you actually build a list? If you type in should, if you know you should be, type in should, otherwise I am, or something like that. I just want to see what the current situation here is. Okay, I'm getting shoulds. Shoulds, not enough. Yeah, exactly, not enough. Actually building lists. Okay, and that is normal. That a lot of people, for the very reasons I've shown you in the beginning, if you don't have the the understanding, the knowing how to be relevant, it is very hard to stare at the screen and go, you know what am I going to write today? What am I going to give away as a freebie? And as a result, we have more shoulds than actually doing it. So here's a quick example of how you should not build your email list. I pulled this off the KLM website, and as you can see, you have to scroll down to the very, very bottom, and here towards the right you see newsletter. Okay, I had to scroll down and click on it, and then I had to go and find one thing here and click on there, and then I had to go and select that I actually want the newsletter and enter all this kind of stuff, including my stuff I didn't know, my Flying Blue membership number and my date of birth, and I had to click on the I'm not a robot. Oh, guess what? I never signed up, right? All of this to get, and this is the key thing, something where, well, I'm getting, and you know, I don't know if you speak German, up here it says updates or special offers. So if I want updates or special offers, I have to jump through all of those hoops. And guess what? You know, I'm not willing to do that. Whereas if I am interested in email or getting information on how to write winning email letters or emails, well, I might be more open to the idea when I come to a website that sells me on the idea, hey, when you sign up, you get my daily email tips and a free copy of my prestigious $97 a month email players newsletter. And all I need to do is put in my email address. So what I want to show you, I want to drive home here is, at the end of the day, you have to sell the fact that people should trust you with their email address. And it's not only the email address, because it's easy to give away a spammy email, but it's the attention. You have to earn that attention. And the key thing here is you earn that attention by being relevant. I mean, I'm starting to sound like a broken record. I hope I am. Mental note to self, use the word relevance more often, right? There is one thing that rules them all, and it is being relevant. And that's why, even at the very, very beginning, when you start building your email list, you need to know precisely what is relevant in people's lives. Why would they give you their email address and, more importantly, their attention? And then you put that out there, as opposed to, hey, look, I am KLM, and you can jump through 7 hoops, and then you get updates and special offers. So, in order to get something that is relevant, but at the same time profitable for you, here is it's not necessarily a step-by-step, but it is an approach you can take to building an email list, or decide how you're going to build an email list. The first one is you need to decide ultimately how you're going to monetize what it is you're doing, namely what value you are providing or what value you are going to monetize to whom. So when you think back to the example I gave you with Andy, he had different levels where he was speaking to different levels in that pyramid. So one of them was, you don't even know where to get started. So that is very specific value in a very interesting way. All he did, or he does, for those things, and they pay him €295 for the pleasure of him driving out there, taking a couple of pictures, cleaning it up in the computer and sending them a 3D inspirational image. Actually, it's 2 3D images. And then people go, that's what I could do. And that is of tremendous value to them. And he monetizes it to the tune of €295 a pop. And to whom? It is an audience who basically hate their messy gardens. That's it. So you need to decide this up front. What level of this pyramid am I serving? How am I serving them? What is it they value? And how am I going to charge for it? Because at the end of the day, we've got these real people with real problems who want real solutions. So it's basically, what real solution do you provide where you can charge for it? Just as a reminder, the different levels are some just experience and pain, and they have no idea. So this is where coaching could come in and help them understand their problem. What is the fundamental problem you really need to address? Because when you know what the problem is, you can start looking for different solutions. And only once you figured out what solution you're actually going to pursue, you can look for for you, the provider who helps them get that solution. And only once that is in place, you get the euro signs. So here's then the process of how to do this, or how I recommend you do that. Once you've figured out whom to provide, what value to, and how to charge for it, you start with your bestseller. Look at your own business. What bestsellers do you have? Look at the numbers. Look at what flies off the shelves without you having to do too much persuasion. Always start with something that's already proven to work, as opposed to reinventing the wheel. I've done a couple of projects over the last couple of weeks now, where we always had the option, hey look, the big swings we get from doing something are completely new. And that is always stupid. Always start with something where you have proof it already works, and then improve on that to begin with, especially when you're coming from a world where your online marketing has been haphazard and you now want to streamline it, you want to automate it, you want to get it to a point where it pays for itself, and then you can grow and scale it. In that case, don't start from a blank slate. Start with something you already know works. And once you've identified this thing, whatever it is you want to sell, whether it's, in Andy's case, cleaning the hazardous waste, or whether it's cleaning patios, or whether it's crafting beautiful arrangements or experiences for that special day, Valentine's Day, whatever it is. Once you've identified that thing, well, then you do step number 2, and that is such an innocent looking point, and it is such a difficult point that really it should be in red, not in green. Talking to past customers is something you must do. We all live this dream that with online marketing, we don't have to be salesy, we don't have to come across as salesmen or saleswomen, we don't have to invade people's privacy, and it seems to be the opposite of the sales profession. And I can tell you, I have sold financial products, insurance products, door-to-door, face-to-face, phone on the phone, right? It is uncomfortable. It is riddled with rejection. And as a result, when I got started with online marketing, or with marketing in general, I thought, brilliant. This whole Peter Drucker telling me the purpose of marketing is to get rid of all sales, to make selling superfluous. I thought this is the best thing in the world. Sadly, that's not what it is, right? If you want to go out and truly understand why people buy from you, where they are on these different levels of the pyramid, what makes them get up in the morning, what makes them seek a solution, you need to talk to them. You need to truly get into their heads. And the reason I'm highlighting this, and highlighting it in green and in red and any other color I can, is I have had clients where I went in and said, look, the first thing we always do, is we survey your past customers, whether they have stayed with you or whether they've stopped buying from you. We need to figure out who has bought from you, who has bought what from you, who is still buying from you, who has stopped buying, and why have they stopped buying. And they said, yes, we'll do that. We'll send out that survey. And I kid you not, it took half a year of chasing them and going, have you sent out that survey? I even wrote the survey in the end. Like, here are the exact words. Here's the printout. Send this thing out. And I printed, send it out. It was a printer, so they didn't want to do email. They said they wanted to print it and send it out in the post. They never did. And then one day, when we're sort of both semi-sober at some local, wine festival, they confessed to me, no, Herr Schenk, we don't actually want to do it. And the reason is, we don't want to find out that people didn't like us. We don't want to find out that someone didn't get to find out. And if you're facing that barrier, if that's a mental blockage for you, you are crippling your own business, right? It is uncomfortable and is kind of aligned with this idea that marketing does away with all sales. At the end of the day, they are human beings, and in all likelihood, if you ask nicely, they will respond to you. I'm always surprised how open people are when you ask them. I've written to random strangers across the world, real estate agents in Seattle. Hey, would you mind hopping on the phone? And they always do. But deep down, we fear that rejection. Someone saying, hey, no, I don't want to talk to you. So if the fear of rejection is so deep-seated that you can't possibly envisage talking to past customers or potential customers, you might as well leave this presentation now, because this is kind of a centerpiece of making this process work. You can test by observing responses to ads, and you will get a good guess, but it'll never be as good as talking to real people. So anyway, with that warning out of the way, once you've identified your bestseller and you've talked to your past customers why they might buy this, why they bought it, why they didn't buy it, why they might buy it again, why they might recommend it to their friends, then you design your first sequence. And that first sequence is kind of in italics, because a reality of email marketing is that you will never hit the perfect thing, right? You do a first sequence. It's based on your observation, on your conversation with past customers, and it'll be a great fit for people who are like your past customers. But of course, that is quite often it's a myopic view. It's based on, your past customers. But who says there isn't a huge pool of other people who are different than your past customers? And that's why I'm saying, start with your bestseller. Start with something you already know sells, and start with your past customers, because these are the people who bought your bestseller, and then create a first version of your first sequence. And this doesn't have to be, and shouldn't be, a daily newsletter. It should be a sequence that guides them through those questions. I have a real problem. I'm looking for a real solution. I have 7 to 20 questions around this, my contact points, and then I will buy from you or not. And once you've dialed that in, then you confirm it with strangers. And what I mean by confirm with strangers, you take it to the next level. Now you talk to new lots of customers. You talk to also, customers who are just like your customers on, for example, Facebook, on Google, on YouTube. And only once that's in place, then you start branching out to other products. So what is required in practice? Well, you need some software. And this software should support, at some level, automation and segmentation. You don't need to go absolutely nuts about this. I personally use a software called Kartra. I've used all kinds of autoresponders. I started out with Aweber in 2007. My first subscription to Aweber, had it for about 10 years. Then I used a couple of other ones, tried them, didn't like them, ended up with ActiveCampaign. After a while, gave up on ActiveCampaign, didn't like the editor, went over to Drip. Still have Drip, still like Drip. It does beautiful automation and segmentation, but at the end of the day, I ended up using something called Kartra, simply because it not only does the email part, but also the web design, all the web pages you need for this whole thing. Plus, it does a fabulous job at content delivery. So if you deliver something that's in electronic format, information, and I always highly recommend anyone who does anything can always deliver something in a digital format. Even Andy. Andy can deliver his beautiful pictures in a members area. And the key thing there is Kartra automates a lot of that, especially with tracking who engages with your content, who engages with the things you've given them. Because that way you figure out who's hyper responsive and then follow up in a more direct way and say, oh, this person over here seems to be really, 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 really interested. So let me invest some time and energy on trying to help them. Because, well, typically you get paid for helping people. By the way, in Kartra, I'm a user of Kartra, started out as a user, loved it so much, I signed up for the affiliate program. If you're interested in using Kartra, let me know. I've got all kinds of automated sequences in there already, and I'm more than happy to share them with anyone who signs up to Kartra through my affiliate link. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but you're getting my sequences as a bonus. More important than that, though, is, and I've said that earlier, it's the cornerstone, it's the centerpiece of everything you're doing, is a solid understanding of what people want and what they are willing to give you their permission for, because we're doing permission-based marketing, so you can stay relevant. This is really the one thing, staying relevant. And how do you do that? How do you become the salesperson who goes into a luggage store and says, you know what, I will not talk about myself. I know what to listen out for. I know what words you are using. You are talking about the quality of luggage. And as a result, I can respond in the appropriate way as opposed to talking from my own perspective. And you can only do that by discovering, by something we call the discovery process, where you talk to real people. And then, as a bare minimum and a starting point, you have a simple system that guides people through their pain points, through their contact points that are required to the solution, and in general, as quickly as possible. If you have someone who is looking for a specific solution, because they already know that they're deciding between you or a couple of other providers, you do not make them jump through hoops. You don't make them go through an endless education sequence. The example, my personal example, I checked out some video solution, and at the top of the page it said, look, in this video you will see what features and benefits our video solution has. It was basically a video creation and distribution service. So I clicked on the video and thought, okay, they're going to tell me about all the things that are in there and the pricing structure. Hell no, they didn't. The first 10 minutes was, here's everything you never wanted to know about YouTube marketing and video marketing in the world, and how many people are in the world and have access to the internet and mobile phones. And I just wanted to shoot myself. It was ridiculous. It was disrespectful of where I was at. I wanted features. I wanted pricing. That's all I cared about. And as a result, I left, never signed up for it. So that's what I mean by you start with a simple system that is respectful of where people are, or what they're at, and where they want to get to, and then guide them to that solution as quickly as possible, and in a respectful way. Not in a persuading them, hey, look, everything is shit and my stuff is good, buy my stuff. No, you take into account their needs and give them what they need. Because at the end of the day, if you treat someone with respect, and if for some reason at the end of the day they don't sign up with you, you still have shown respect for where they're at and what it is they need. And as a result, they're much more likely to refer you to others, even if they don't become customers. The worst thing you can do is get someone like me to now talk to hundreds of people on these regular webinars and say, you know what, I had a really bad experience with Product Launch Formula. That's a bad thing. That's not good for Product Launch Formula, right? Because they took advantage of my lack of knowledge. I'm now talking about them and saying, look, I don't highly recommend them. I don't think they're right for many people, especially those who are being targeted by them, namely people who don't have experience, who don't have a product, who don't have a list. It's not good for them. So if you turn that around and treat people with respect and say, this is for you if, and you need to think about what it is you've got, and that's why we talked about your bestseller in the beginning, then you're much more likely to attract the right ones. The point of this last thing here is basically you start with a very simple set of emails. You don't need to worry about a daily email list or daily email newsletter or weekly one. You don't need to worry about what do I write about now. No, you just focus on crafting these sequences of emails. And then over time, if you decide that it makes sense in your business and you want to invest the time and energy, well, you can build that brand. And that brand, what I mean there is the know, like, and trust factor, where you go beyond solving their immediate problem, but instead start building that connection to you. And you do that typically through a regular newsletter, where you do that over time. That's after you have proven what works and what doesn't work in your business. So there you go. Email marketing, successful email marketing, and that's really what we're addressing here, happens at the intersection. And this is where, in my opinion, you should start. You start with what it is you bring to the table, or, turned around, why people might see you as a unique buying proposition. And you do that centered around real problems or real solutions for real people. Real people have real problems and they're looking for a real solution. And you focus on just that one, the one best seller you have. The one you already know works, as opposed to exploring new things that might work at some point in the future. And you do that typically by, taking a bestseller where you already have proof and you have past customers or potential customers who maybe haven't bought from you, but for the same type of solution from someone else. So you can figure out what's really going on. That's it in a very big nutshell. So if you would like to learn more, I have a program planned on how to do this, how to do the initial discovery process, how to then take that information and flesh it out into an initial sequence, like I said, a first sequence, where you go out and test the marketplace, where you get feedback from the real market, first of all, from an audience that is just like your ideal audience, the ones you've already got proof for, or if you don't have that proof yet, how to get that initial proof, and then how to build it out across different audiences that might be qualified for your thing, and then later on, only once that's in place, to different products, different markets, and only once that's in place, once these initial sales systems, email systems are in place, and they actually return a positive ROI, then how to build it out into a daily newsletter, what to write in these things, how to connect it all up so people look forward to opening your emails. So if you'd like to know more, here's my private email. You can send me an email and we'll have a chat. So there you go. That's it in on the dot. Actually, 1 minute over the dot. 1 hour nutshell on what it takes to do email marketing in 2019 and beyond. Do you have any questions at this point? If there are any questions, type them into the chat box. Dave wants to know, will this recording be sent out in case you've missed the first few minutes? Yes, I will. Well, it says, you know what technology is like. It says it is recording. I will, after this, click on stop recording, but you never know. So if the recording worked, I will upload it and send it out. Yes, absolutely. Dale also wants to know, am I planning a course or private coaching? I am doing both. There's going to be a course and a higher level coaching group. The first one is it's kind of an e-course with group coaching, and then there is one-on-one coaching. All right, if there are no more questions, I am looking forward to an evening with parent-teacher meetings. Yes. I think I need to get a beer beforehand, just to calm down. Alrighty, no more questions. 3, 2, 1. Well, thank you very much for spending an hour with me today. It's one of the rare occasions where I've managed to stick to an hour. And I'll, hopefully, fingers crossed, the recording worked, and I'll send it out as soon as it's rendered and uploaded. And it'll be after the parent-teacher nightmare. Alrighty, cheers. Bye.